Eleanor Hartwell's knees hit the frozen ground outside Iron Creek Ranch, her fingers clawing at the iron gates like a woman drowning. Blood stained her torn skirt from 3 days walking barefoot through Wyoming snow. Inside that ranch house, lamplight glowed warm against the October darkness. Warmth she hadn't felt since they buried her son 2 years ago. Then the rancher stepped onto his porch rifle across his chest, storm blue eyes cutting through her like judgment itself. "Please," she whispered, "just let me work." His answer would either save her life or finish what starvation had started. If you want to see how one desperate moment became a second chance at everything, subscribe now and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far Eleanor's story reaches across the world. The gates of Iron Creek Ranch stood 12 feet tall, wrought iron twisted into patterns that looked like thorns. Eleanor pressed her forehead against the cold metal, her breath coming in short gasps that turned to white clouds in the freezing air. She'd walked 40 miles in 3 days. Her shoes had fallen apart somewhere near the Sweetwater River, and she'd left them in the mud rather than carry the useless leather. Now her feet were wrapped in strips torn from her petticoat, the fabric black with dried blood and dirt. The ranch spread before her like a painting of everything she'd lost. Whitewashed fences stretched toward mountains already capped with snow. Cattle dotted the hillsides, fat and healthy. Smoke rose from 3 separate buildings: the main house, the bunkhouse, the foreman's quarters. People lived here. People who had enough. Eleanor's stomach cramped so hard she doubled over, one hand still gripping the gate. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Before that, wild rose hips and creek water. Before that, she couldn't remember. "State your business." The voice came sharp and cold from 20 feet away. Eleanor's head snapped up. A man stood near the barn, tall and raw-boned, with sun-weathered skin and eyes that held nothing but suspicion. He wore a pistol on his hip and carried a coiled rope like he knew how to use it. "I'm looking for work, sir." Eleanor's voice cracked. "Any kind of work. I can cook clean tinned animals. I don't need much, just food and somewhere to sleep." The man spat into the dust. "Do I look like I run a charity house?" "No, sir. I'm asking for work, not charity." "Work." He looked her up and down, his lip curling. "Lady, you can barely stand. What kind of work you think you can do like that?" Eleanor forced herself upright, though her vision swam. "Whatever you need. I'm stronger than I look." "You look like death warmed over." The man walked closer, stopping just outside the gates. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd thought, maybe 35, with pale eyes that reminded her of winter ice. "Name's Sam Tucker. I'm the foreman here, and I've seen your kind before. Drifters, beggars, con artists. They all got sad stories and empty bellies. I'm not a con artist. That's what they all say." Sam crossed his arms. "Let me guess. Husband died, left you with nothing. Or maybe you ran from something. Maybe the law's looking for you." Eleanor's hands clenched. "My husband's dead, yes. And the men who held our debt took everything we owned, legal or not. But I've never broken a law in my life." "Convenient that you can't prove any of it." "I can prove I can work. Give me 1 day. 1 day to show you." Sam shook his head. "Mr. Dalton don't hire off the road. You want work, go into town. Try the hotel or the saloon." "I've been to town." Eleanor's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They turned me away. All of them." "Then maybe you should keep walking." The world tilted sideways. Eleanor grabbed the gate again, her knuckles white against the black iron. She couldn't keep walking. There was nowhere left to walk to. "Sam!" A new voice cut through the air, deep and commanding. "Step aside." Eleanor looked up and saw him for the first time. James Dalton stood 6 feet tall in worn dungarees and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows despite the cold. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples. Jaw like it had been carved from granite. Eyes the color of a winter sky just before snow, blue-gray and hard as stone. He moved down from the porch with the controlled grace of a man who'd spent his life on horseback, each step deliberate and measured. A rifle rested across his forearms, not pointed at her, but present all the same. "Mr. Dalton?" Sam moved aside but didn't leave. "I was just sending her on her way." "I heard what you were doing." Cole's eyes never left Eleanor's face. "I'll handle it from here." Sam hesitated, then nodded, and walked back toward the barn, throwing one last suspicious glance over his shoulder. Cole stopped 10 feet from the gate. "You been standing out here long?" "Few minutes, sir." "You walk from town?" "Yes, sir." "That's 12 miles. His gaze dropped to her feet to the blood-soaked rags wrapped around them. "You walk it like that?" Eleanor followed his eyes and felt shame wash over her. "My shoes didn't last." "When'd you eat last?" "Day before yesterday. Some berries." Cole's jaw tightened. "You got a name?" "Eleanor Hartwell." The lie came automatically. Not entirely a lie. Hartwell had been her grandmother's name, the woman who'd raised her after her parents died. But safer than Brennan, the name she'd carried when they'd taken everything. "Where you from, Eleanor Hartwell?" "Kansas originally. Been traveling for a while." "Traveling." Cole's tone made it clear what he thought of that word. "Running's more like it." "Not running, sir. Just trying to survive." "Those two things often look the same." He shifted the rifle slightly. "Sam says you want work." "Yes, sir." "Doing what?" "Anything you need. I kept house for my husband, managed our homestead. I can cook for large groups, do laundry, mend clothes, tend a garden. I can read and write and cipher numbers. I can—" "You can stop." Cole held up one hand. "I don't need a list of skills. I need to know if you'll stay." The question caught Eleanor off guard. "Sir, you heard me. You planning to work a week and then disappear? Take what you can carry and run." "No, sir." "Everyone says that." "I mean it." "Why should I believe you?" Eleanor met his eyes, those hard winter sky eyes, and told him the truth. "Because I have nowhere else to go. This is my last stop, Mr. Dalton. If you turn me away, I'll be dead before spring. So, no, I won't run. I'll work until you tell me to leave, or until I can't work anymore. Whichever comes first." Silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the distance, a cow lowed. The wind picked up, cutting through Eleanor's threadbare shawl like it wasn't even there. "You got family?" Cole asked. "No, sir. All dead." "Kids?" The question hit like a fist to the stomach. Eleanor's breath caught, and for a moment she couldn't speak. "I had a son. He died of fever when he was 2 years old." Something flickered in Cole's expression, too fast to read. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you, sir." "How long ago?" 2 years last month." Cole nodded slowly, processing this. "And your husband?" 6 months after our son. He couldn't—" Eleanor's voice broke. She steadied it. "He couldn't live with the grief. He took his own life." More silence. Cole's knuckles were white where he gripped the rifle. "After that," Eleanor continued, "men came with papers saying we owed debts we'd never agreed to. They took the land, the house, the livestock, everything. I tried to fight it, but I had no money for lawyers, no family to help, so I left. And came here. Eventually." "What did you do between Kansas and here?" "Worked where I could. Missouri for a few months cleaning hotel rooms. Colorado washing dishes. But winter's coming, and seasonal work dries up. I heard Wyoming ranches sometimes need help year-round." "You heard right." Cole's eyes narrowed. "But most ranches want men for winter work. Heavy labor fixing fences in snow, breaking ice on water troughs. You think you can do that?" "I think I can do whatever needs doing." "That's not an answer." "Then yes, sir, I can do it." Cole studied her for a long moment. Eleanor forced herself to stand still under his scrutiny, even though her legs shook with exhaustion and her vision kept blurring at the edges. Finally, he spoke. "I got 2 daughters. Abigail's 10, Margaret's 6. Their mother died 3 years ago, and they've been through more governesses and housekeepers than I can count. Every one of them promised to stay. Every one of them left within a month." Eleanor's heart began to pound. "Why'd they leave?" Some couldn't handle the isolation. Some thought they could charm their way into becoming the next Mrs. Dalton and got angry when it didn't work. Some just didn't like children. His voice went flat. "And some my daughters drove away on purpose because they got tired of losing people. You want me to care for your daughters? I want you to prove you can care for them." Cole stepped closer to the gate. "Here's my offer, Eleanor Hartwell. You work for room and board. No wages. Not yet. You take care of my girls, help with the house, and show me you're worth keeping around. You last 2 weeks, we'll talk about wages. You last a month, you got a permanent position if you want it. And if I don't last, then you leave." His eyes were ice. "But understand this, my daughters have been hurt enough. They don't need another person walking into their lives just to abandon them. If you're going to fail, fail fast. Don't let them get attached first." The words should have been cruel. Instead, they sounded like a father trying desperately to protect the only things he had left to love. Eleanor straightened her shoulders. "I won't fail. Everyone says that too. I'm not everyone." Cole's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "We'll see." He turned and called over his shoulder. "Sam, open the gate." Sam emerged from the barn scowling. "Boss, you sure about this?" "I'm sure I gave you an order." "Yes, sir." Sam pulled a key from his belt and unlocked the heavy gate, swinging it open with a screech of metal on metal. He stepped back, his expression making it clear what he thought of this decision. Eleanor walked through the gate on trembling legs, each step sending sharp pain through her ruined feet. She kept her head high anyway, kept moving until she stood in the yard of Iron Creek Ranch, inside the walls instead of outside them. Cole gestured toward the house. "Come on. We'll get you cleaned up and fed, then you can meet the girls." "Thank you, Mr. Dalton." "Don't thank me yet." He started walking, expecting her to follow. "You haven't met Abby." The house was bigger up close, 2 stories of whitewashed wood with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Rocking chairs sat empty in the fading light. Curtains hung in the windows, lace and clean, speaking of a woman's touch that had been gone for 3 years. Cole held the door open. Eleanor stepped inside and stopped, overwhelmed. She hadn't been inside a real home since Kansas. The front hall gleamed with polished wood floors covered by woven rugs in shades of blue and cream. A staircase curved upward to the right. To the left, she glimpsed a parlor with furniture that looked comfortable rather than fancy. Worn leather chairs, a stone fireplace, shelves lined with books. The smell hit her next. Bread baking, coffee, wood smoke and beeswax polish. The smells of life, of people who had enough to eat and a warm place to sleep. Eleanor's knees buckled. Cole caught her before she hit the floor, his arm solid around her waist. "When's the last time you slept?" "I don't know." "Mrs. Brennan!" Cole's voice rang out sharp and commanding. A woman hurried out from what must be the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She was perhaps 50, gray hair, pulled back in a severe bun, with a round face and shrewd eyes that took in the situation at a glance. "Lord have mercy." She rushed forward. "Bring her to the kitchen, Mr. Dalton. I'll get water heating." Cole half-carried Eleanor through the house to a large kitchen that smelled like heaven. A massive stove radiated heat. Pots bubbled on the stovetop. A scarred wooden table dominated the center of the room, surrounded by mismatched chairs. "Sit her here." Ruth Brennan pulled out a chair. "What's her name?" "Eleanor Hartwell." Cole lowered Eleanor into the chair carefully. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days." "2 days?" Ruth's mouth thinned. "I'll get soup. Don't give her anything heavy yet, or she'll be sick." She ladled something from a pot on the stove, chicken broth, rich and golden, and set it in front of Eleanor with a spoon. Eat slow. Small sips. Eleanor lifted the spoon with shaking hands. The first taste of hot broth nearly made her cry. She forced herself to sip slowly, even though every instinct screamed to gulp it down. Ruth turned to Cole. You hiring her? Trial basis. 2 weeks. Ruth's eyebrows rose. For the girls? Yes. Mr. Dalton, have you looked at her? She needs a week just to recover her strength. I'm fine, Eleanor said quickly. I can work. You can barely hold a spoon. But Ruth's voice had softened. What happened to your feet? Lost my shoes on the road. Ruth muttered something uncomplimentary about men who let women walk 40 miles barefoot, then began pulling supplies from cabinets. Bandages, salve, clean cloth. Finish that soup, then we'll see about getting you cleaned up and those feet tended. Cole watched from near the stove, his expression unreadable. The girls are upstairs with Miss Whitmore, their governess. Should I meet them now? Eleanor asked. No. Cole's voice was firm. You need food, rest, and medical attention first. Tomorrow's soon enough. But that's not a request, Mrs. Hartwell. That's how things work at Iron Creek. You follow my orders or you leave. Eleanor bit back her protest and nodded. Yes, sir. Good. Cole pushed away from the stove. Ruth, get her settled in the blue room. Make sure she has everything she needs. Of course. He paused at the kitchen door, looking back at Eleanor one more time. My daughters wake at 6. Breakfast is at 6:30. If you're not well enough to join us, Ruth will bring food to your room. But I'd prefer you meet them at the table same as everyone else. I'll be there. We'll see. Cole tipped his hat slightly, a gesture that felt oddly formal. Welcome to Iron Creek, Mrs. Hartwell. Don't make me regret this. Then he was gone, his boots echoing down the hallway toward what sounded like an office. Ruth set another bowl of soup in front of Eleanor. Eat all of that, then we'll talk. Eleanor ate, feeling strength seep back into her body with each spoonful. When she'd finished, Ruth took the bowl and crossed her arms. Now, the truth. Are you running from the law? No, ma'am. Running from a man. My husband's dead. That's not what I asked. Eleanor met her eyes steadily. I'm not running from anyone. I'm just trying to survive. Ruth studied her for a long moment. You know what you're walking into here. Mr. Dalton said his daughters have been through many caregivers. That's putting it mildly. Ruth pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. Those girls have been hurt, Mrs. Hartwell. Their mother died slow and painful, and they watched it happen. Then every person who's tried to fill that void has left them. Abby's built walls so high you'd need dynamite to get through. And Maggie... Ruth's voice softened. Maggie asks every new person the same question. Are you going to stay forever? And when they leave, it breaks her heart all over again. Eleanor's chest tightened. I won't leave. You say that now, but winter's hard here. We're 12 miles from town, and when the snow gets deep, we don't see another soul for weeks at a time. The wind howls like demons. The cold gets into your bones and doesn't leave. Women from cities, they can't take it. They go mad with the isolation. I'm not from a city, not from a town. I grew up on a farm. Then you know how brutal it can be. Ruth leaned forward. I'm going to give you advice, Mrs. Hartwell, and you'd be wise to take it. Don't make promises to those girls. Don't tell them you'll never leave. Just show up every day and do your work. Let your actions speak. That's what I plan to do. Good. Ruth stood. Come on. Let's get you cleaned up before you meet anyone else. The blue room was on the second floor, small but clean, with a narrow bed covered in a patchwork quilt. A washstand stood in the corner, and a window looked out over the ranch buildings toward the mountains beyond. Ruth brought hot water and a pitcher clean towels, and a bar of lavender soap that smelled like luxury. There's a nightgown in the drawer, and I'll bring up some clothes that might fit. You're about the same size Catherine was. Catherine. Mr. Dalton's wife. Don't worry, he offered. Says it's foolish to let good clothes sit in a trunk when someone needs them. Ruth paused at the door. She was a good woman, Mrs. Hartwell. Kind and strong and full of light. The girls loved her something fierce. I'm not trying to replace her. I know, but they won't see it that way at first. Ruth's expression gentled. Just be patient, and be yourself. Don't try to be Catherine. Be Eleanor. After she left, Eleanor stripped off her filthy clothes and washed as thoroughly as she could with the basin and pitcher. The water turned gray-brown. She washed again, then a third time, until finally her skin felt clean. The nightgown was soft white cotton, worn thin from many washings, but still whole. Eleanor pulled it over her head and sat on the edge of the bed to tend her feet. They looked worse than she'd thought. Blisters had burst and bled, then scabbed over, then torn open again. The skin was raw and angry red in places, turning purple-black in others. She cleaned them as gently as possible, biting her lip against the pain, then wrapped them in the bandages Ruth had provided. Finally, she lay back on the bed, the first real bed she'd slept in for weeks, and stared at the ceiling. She'd made it. Against all odds, she'd made it through the gates. Now came the harder part, staying. Eleanor closed her eyes and thought of Cole Dalton's face, hard and suspicious. Thought of his warning. My daughters have been hurt enough. She understood that. God, did she understand that? Tomorrow she would meet Abigail and Margaret. Tomorrow she would begin proving she deserved to be here. Tonight she would sleep in a warm bed and let herself believe just for a moment that maybe she'd finally found a place to stop running. Outside her window, the wind picked up, rattling the glass. Winter was coming to Wyoming. But Eleanor Hartwell had survived worse winters than this. And she would survive this one too, or die trying. Eleanor woke to darkness and the sound of boots on hardwood below. Her heart hammered before memory returned. Iron Creek Ranch, the Blue Room safety. She sat up too fast, and her head spun. The bandages on her feet had bled through during the night. Footsteps passed her door, then retreated. A man's voice, low and commanding. Cole's voice. She pulled herself upright and hobbled to the washstand. Her reflection in the small mirror shocked her hollow cheeks, dark circles under eyes that looked too large for her face. She splashed cold water on her skin and braided her hair with shaking fingers. The dress Ruth had left fit well enough. Dark blue cotton, simple and practical, with long sleeves and a high collar. Catherine Dalton's dress. Eleanor tried not to think about the woman who'd worn it before, the woman whose place she was stepping into without any right to do so. The clock on the washstand read 5:45. Breakfast at 6:30, Cole had said. She had time to prove herself useful before facing his daughters. The kitchen was already warm when Eleanor limped downstairs, following the smell of coffee and wood smoke. Ruth stood at the stove, her back to the door. "You should be resting those feet," Ruth said without turning around. "I can rest when I'm dead." Eleanor crossed to the table. "What needs doing?" Ruth turned, eyebrows raised. "You can barely walk." "I can walk well enough. Put me to work." For a long moment, Ruth just looked at her. Then she pointed to a basket of eggs. "Those need washing, gently. Don't crack them." Eleanor sat and pulled the basket close, washing each egg carefully in the basin Ruth provided. Her hands remembered the rhythm from Kansas, from the homestead she'd built with Thomas. The life they'd made before fever took their son, and grief took her husband. "You cry while you work, you'll salt the eggs," Ruth said. Eleanor hadn't realized tears were sliding down her face. She wiped them away roughly. "Sorry. Don't apologize. Just don't let the girls see. They've cried enough for 3 lifetimes." "Tell me about them." Eleanor kept her hands moving. "So I don't say the wrong thing." Ruth cracked eggs into a bowl with practiced efficiency. "Abby's smart. Too smart for her own good sometimes. She reads books meant for children twice her age, and asks questions that'd make a preacher uncomfortable. She remembers everything, every promise broken, every person who left. She'll test you until you break or prove yourself." "And Margaret?" "Maggie." Ruth's voice softened. "She's all heart, that one." Wants to love everyone, trust everyone. It's gotten her hurt more times than I can count. She has nightmares about her mother wakes up crying for someone who can't come back. Eleanor's chest tightened. How did Catherine die? Consumption. Tuberculosis, the doctor called it. Took her slow over 6 months. She fought hard, tried to stay for the girls, but... Ruth's hands stilled. Some fights you can't win, no matter how hard you try. Mr. Dalton loved her. Loves her still. Ruth started mixing biscuit dough. That's what you're walking into, Mrs. Hartwell. A man who buried his heart with his wife and 2 girls, who learned that loving people means losing them. Before Eleanor could respond, boots sounded on the stairs. Cole appeared in the doorway, freshly shaved, his hair still damp. His eyes went straight to Eleanor. You're up. Yes, sir. How are your feet? Fine. That's a lie. His gaze dropped to where blood had seeped through her stockings. But I'll allow it for now. He poured himself coffee from the pot on the stove. The girls will be down in 15 minutes. Miss Whitmore's getting them dressed. Eleanor's stomach clenched. Should I? Sit at the table like everyone else. Don't hover, don't fuss. Act like you belong here. Cole's eyes met hers over the rim of his coffee cup. Even if you don't feel like you do. Yes, sir. And stop calling me sir every sentence. My name's Cole. Yes, Eleanor caught herself. Yes. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then he turned and walked out, taking his coffee with him. Ruth shook her head. That's the most words I've heard him string together in 3 years. Is that good or bad? Don't know yet. Ruth slid biscuits into the oven. But it's something. Eleanor helped set the table plates, forks, knives, cups. Her hands knew the pattern, the rhythm of preparing for a family meal. It hurt and comforted in equal measure. Mrs. Brennan. A young woman appeared in the doorway, perhaps 25, with pale blonde hair and anxious blue eyes. The girls are ready, but Abby's in a mood. When isn't she? Ruth gestured toward Eleanor. Miss Whitmore, this is Mrs. Hartwell. She'll be helping with the household and the girls. Miss Whitmore's face flooded with relief. Oh, thank heavens. She flushed. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but Abby's been particularly difficult lately, and Maggie won't sleep unless someone sits with her, and I'm simply not... It's all right, dear. Ruth's voice was kind. Go bring them down. Miss Whitmore fled. Ruth met Eleanor's eyes. That one won't last the month. Too soft for this life. She seems kind. Kind doesn't keep you warm in winter. Ruth wiped her hands on her apron. You ready? Eleanor's heart pounded. No. Good. The ones who think they're ready always fail first. Footsteps on the stairs. Light, quick, child-sized. Eleanor forced herself to stand by the table, not hovering, not fussing, acting like she belonged. 2 girls appeared in the doorway. The older one stopped dead, her gray eyes. Cole's eyes sweeping over Eleanor with an assessment that felt adult and hostile. Dark hair in 2 neat braids. A green dress buttoned to her throat. Hands clenched at her sides. Who are you? Abby's voice carried no warmth. Eleanor Hartwell. I'm here to help your father with the household. We don't need help. Abby. Miss Whitmore's voice trembled. Don't be rude. I'm not being rude. I'm being honest. Abby stepped fully into the kitchen, positioning herself between Eleanor and the younger girl still hiding in the hallway. We've had 17 people help with the household in 3 years. They all left. What makes you different? Eleanor met those hard gray eyes and told the truth. Nothing. I'm just as likely to fail as anyone else. Abby blinked, clearly thrown. Then why are you here? Because I have nowhere else to go, and your father offered me a chance. That's all. That's honest, at least. Abby moved to her chair and sat ramrod straight. Most of them lie. Say they'll stay forever, say they care about us. Then they disappear without even saying goodbye. Eleanor's throat tightened. She knew that betrayal. had felt it every time someone walked away from her too. A small figure peeked around the doorway. Blonde hair in ringlets. Blue eyes. Catherine's eyes, Eleanor realized. The younger girl wore a pink dress with a torn hem and clutched a doll to her chest. "Hello," Eleanor said softly. "You must be Margaret." "Maggie." The girl's voice was barely audible. "Only Mama called me Margaret." "Then Maggie it is." The child studied Eleanor with an intensity that seemed too old for 6 years. "Are you pretty?" The question caught Eleanor off guard. "I what?" "Miss Whitmore says Papa only hires pretty ladies to take care of us. She says he's looking for a new wife." Maggie's grip tightened on her doll. "Are you going to marry Papa?" "Maggie," Miss Whitmore gasped. "That's completely inappropriate." But Eleanor couldn't look away from the hope and fear warring in that small face. "No, sweetheart. I'm not here to marry anyone. I'm here to work." "That's what they all say too," Abby muttered. "Then I'll prove it through my actions, not my words." Eleanor pulled out a chair. "Why don't you both sit down? Breakfast smells ready." Maggie moved slowly to her seat, still watching Eleanor like she might disappear. Abby's gaze never wavered, suspicious and calculating. The kitchen door opened, and Cole walked in, his presence filling the room. Both girls straightened automatically. "Morning, girls." He took his seat at the head of the table. "Morning, Papa," they chorused. Cole's eyes found Eleanor still standing. "Sit down, Mrs. Hartwell. You're not a servant." "I'm not family either." "You're somewhere in between. Now sit before the food gets cold." Eleanor sat. Ruth brought platters, eggs scrambled with cheese, thick slices of bacon, golden biscuits still steaming. Eleanor's mouth watered. She waited until everyone else had filled their plates before taking small portions for herself. "You can eat more than that," Cole said. "You're half-starved." "I don't want to take—" "There's plenty." His tone left no room for argument. "Eat." Eleanor added another biscuit to her plate. Maggie watched every movement. "You have sad eyes, Maggie." Cole's voice held warning. "But she does, Papa. Like you. Like the eyes in the mirror when I cry." Silence fell over the table. Miss Whitmore looked mortified. Abby's face had gone carefully blank. Cole's jaw tightened. Eleanor set down her fork. "You're right, Maggie. I do have sad eyes. I lost people I loved just like you did." "Who?" The child leaned forward. "My son. And my husband." "How did they die?" "Maggie, that's enough," Cole said. But Eleanor shook her head. "It's all right. My son got sick with a fever. The doctors couldn't save him. And my husband—" She swallowed hard. "He died 6 months later. His heart just gave out." It was close enough to the truth. Thomas's heart had given out in a way, just not the way most people meant. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry about your mama too. Do you still think about them? Your little boy and your husband?" "Every day." "Me too. I think about Mama every day." A tear slid down Maggie's cheek. "But I can't remember her voice anymore. Is that bad?" Eleanor's vision blurred. "No, sweetheart. That's just what time does. It takes the sounds but leaves the love. The love never fades." Maggie climbed off her chair and walked to Eleanor's side. Before Eleanor could react, small arms wrapped around her neck in a fierce hug. "I'm glad you have sad eyes like us," Maggie whispered. "The happy people don't understand." Eleanor's arms came up automatically, holding this child who'd lost so much. Over Maggie's shoulder she saw Abby's face, naked, longing, warring with fierce protectiveness. Cole stood abruptly. "Girls, finish your breakfast. Mrs. Hartwell, I need to speak with you in my office when you're done." He walked out without waiting for a response. Maggie pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Did I get you in trouble?" "No, honey, you didn't do anything wrong." Eleanor smoothed the girl's hair. "Go finish eating." Abby waited until Maggie sat down, then leaned across the table. My sister hugs everyone. It doesn't mean anything. I know. And just because you said the right things doesn't mean you'll stay. They all say the right things at first. I know that too. Then why should we believe you're different? Eleanor met those hard, hurting eyes. You shouldn't. Not yet. Believe me when I've earned it. Something shifted in Abby's expression. Not acceptance, but maybe a crack in the wall. Fine. But I'm watching you. Good. Someone should. After breakfast, Eleanor found Cole in his office, a small room off the main hall lined with books and dominated by a heavy oak desk covered in papers. He stood by the window, his back to her. Close the door, he said. Eleanor obeyed, her heart racing. Cole turned. That was well done. Sir, with Maggie. You didn't promise anything you can't deliver. You were honest. He crossed his arms. But you opened a door that might be hard to close. I know. Maggie will get attached fast. She's desperate for a mother figure. And Abby will fight me every step of the way. Yes. Cole's eyes searched her face. Can you handle both? I don't know, but I'll try. He nodded slowly. Ruth says your feet are worse this morning. They'll heal. Not if you keep walking on them. He moved to his desk and pulled out a ledger. I'm assigning you light duties for the next week. Help Ruth with meal preparation, supervise the girls' lessons read to them in the evenings. No heavy cleaning, no going up and down stairs more than necessary. I can do more than that. This isn't negotiable, Mrs. Hartwell. His tone hardened. You collapse from infection or exhaustion, you're no good to anyone. Take care of yourself so you can take care of them. Eleanor bit back her protest. Yes, sir. Cole. Yes, Cole. His expression softened fractionally. The girls have lessons with Miss Whitmore from 9 to noon. You're welcome to observe, see how they learn. Afternoons free time they usually play outside if weather permits. Evening meal at 6, bedtime at 8. Ruth will show you where everything is. What about you? What's your schedule? Why? So I know when you need meals, when the house needs to be quiet, when... I'm up at 5, out working until noon, back for midday meal, out again until 6. Evenings I spend in here with paperwork. He gestured to the papers covering his desk. Ranch doesn't run itself. Do you ever spend time with your daughters? Cole's face went carefully blank. I provide for them, keep them safe, fed, clothed. That's not what I asked. It's the answer you're getting. He turned back to the window. You can go, Mrs. Hartwell. I'm sure Ruth has work for you. Eleanor recognized a dismissal. She left, closing the door softly behind her. The morning passed in a blur of small tasks. Ruth put her to work, snapping beans, peeling potatoes, kneading bread dough. Eleanor's hands remembered the rhythms, even as her mind wandered to the family she was trying to understand. At 9 o'clock, she climbed the stairs slowly, carefully to the schoolroom on the second floor. Miss Whitmore sat at a small desk, looking frazzled. Abby worked through arithmetic problems with fierce concentration. Maggie stared out the window, her slate covered in drawings instead of letters. Mrs. Hartwell? Miss Whitmore stood quickly. I didn't expect... Mr. Dalton suggested I observe, if that's all right. Of course. Yes, please. The governess gestured to a chair in the corner. Maggie, pay attention. I am paying attention. Maggie didn't look away from the window. I'm watching that bird. Did you know robins can find their way home from hundreds of miles away? They remember. That's very interesting, but we're working on penmanship right now. I don't like penmanship. My letters always look crooked. They look crooked because you don't practice. Miss Whitmore's voice held barely controlled frustration. Now please. Why do I have to practice? Papa doesn't write fancy letters. His look like chicken scratches. Abby snorted, then covered it with a cough. Miss Whitmore's face flushed. Young lady, that's disrespectful. But it's true. Maggie turned from the window, her blue eyes wide and innocent. You said we should always tell the truth. Papa's letters do look like chicken scratches. He said so himself. Eleanor bit her lip to keep from smiling. The point, Miss Whitmore said tightly, is that you need to learn proper penmanship regardless of how your father writes. Why? Because I said so. That's not a reason. Miss Whitmore looked ready to cry. Eleanor stood and crossed to Maggie's desk, kneeling carefully beside the child's chair. Can I see your slate? She asked quietly. Maggie handed it over. The drawings were actually quite good, the robin she'd been watching rendered in careful detail with the chalk. This is beautiful, Eleanor said. You have real talent. Maggie's face lit up. Really? Really? But Miss Whitmore's right that you need to practice your letters too. They're boring. They are, Eleanor agreed. But you know what's not boring? Writing stories about the things you draw, like this robin. Where do you think he's flying? Maggie's eyes went distant thoughtful. Home, to his family. And what's his family like? He has 3 babies in a nest, and a wife who worries about him when he's gone. That's a good story. Eleanor handed back the slate. Why don't you practice your letters by writing it down? Then you can draw a picture to go with it. Maggie considered this. Okay, but only if you help me spell the hard words. Deal. For the next 2 hours, Eleanor moved between the girls. Maggie worked on her story, asking for help with spelling. Abby finished her arithmetic and moved to reading, tackling a book that looked far too advanced for a 10-year-old. What are you reading? Eleanor asked. Abby held up the cover. Shakespeare, A Midsummer Night's Dream. That's ambitious. I like the fairies. They're cruel but honest about it. Abby's eyes met Eleanor's with a challenge. Better than people who pretend to be kind then disappear. You're right. Honesty is better than false kindness. Abby blinked, thrown again by Eleanor's agreement. You're different from the others. How so? You don't try to make us like you. You just... Abby struggled for words. You just are. Would you prefer I tried harder? No. Abby looked down at her book. I'd prefer you stay, but you won't. Why are you so sure? Because nobody does. Abby's voice went flat. Mama died. The first housekeeper left after 2 weeks, said we were too difficult. The second one Papa had to fire for stealing. The third one ran off with a traveling salesman. The fourth... Abby? Eleanor interrupted gently. I know you've been hurt. And I know you don't trust me. But can I tell you something? What? I lost my son 2 years ago. For a long time after I couldn't imagine staying anywhere. Every place felt wrong because he wasn't in it. I kept moving, kept running, thinking maybe the next town would hurt less. Eleanor's throat tightened. But running doesn't make the pain go away. It just means you're alone with it. Abby's eyes were suspiciously bright. So you stopped running? I'm trying to. Your father gave me a chance to try. And when you get tired of trying, when winter gets hard and you remember there are easier places to be. Eleanor held the girl's gaze. Then I'll remember there are 2 girls here who've been left too many times already, and I'll stay anyway. That's just words. Yes, so watch my actions instead. Abby stared at her for a long moment, then returned to her book without another word. But Eleanor saw her brush away tears before the words came back into focus. At noon, Miss Whitmore dismissed the girls for lunch and practically ran from the room. Eleanor found her in the hallway crying quietly. I'm sorry, the governess whispered. I'm just so tired. They never listen, and I don't know how to reach them, and... It's all right. It's not all right. I'm failing, just like all the others. Miss Whitmore wiped her eyes. I should leave before Mr. Dalton fires me. Or you could stay and let me help. Miss Whitmore looked up, hope flickering. You'd do that. We're both trying to care for the same girls. Makes sense to work together. For the first time that morning, Miss Whitmore smiled. "Thank you, Mrs. Hartwell." After lunch, the girls went outside to play. Eleanor watched from the kitchen window as they ran across the yard, Maggie chasing chickens, laughing when they squawked and scattered. Abby sat on the porch steps with her book, pretending not to watch her sister, but clearly keeping guard. "They need their father," Ruth said quietly, appearing at Eleanor's shoulder. "He's busy with the ranch. He's hiding from grief." Ruth's voice was matter of fact. "Easier to work than to feel, but those girls are growing up without him, and he's missing it." Eleanor thought of Cole's face that morning, the way he'd stood and left when Maggie hugged her. Running from emotion. Running from attachment. She understood that too well. That evening after dinner, Eleanor offered to put the girls to bed. Cole looked surprised, but nodded permission. Maggie chattered the whole way upstairs, talking about the robin she'd seen, and the story she'd written, and how Miss Whitmore had actually smiled at her today. Abby walked ahead silent and watchful. Their room was large, with 2 beds separated by a nightstand. Dolls lined the shelves. Drawings covered one wall, Maggie's work, Eleanor guessed. A photograph sat on the nightstand between the beds, a beautiful woman with dark hair and laughing eyes holding 2 small girls. Catherine. "That's Mama," Maggie said, climbing into bed. "She was pretty, wasn't she? Very pretty. Do you think she can see us from heaven?" Eleanor's chest tightened. "I think if anyone's watching over you, it's her." "Then she sees you too, and she knows you're sad like us." Maggie pulled her doll close. "Will you read to us? Please. If your sister doesn't mind." Abby was already in bed, turned toward the wall. "Do what you want." Eleanor picked up a book from the shelf, fairy tales worn from many readings. She settled in the chair between the beds and began to read. Maggie fell asleep halfway through the second story, her breathing evening out into soft snores. But Abby hadn't moved, still facing the wall. Eleanor closed the book quietly. "You can go now," Abby said. "We don't need tucking in." "All right." Eleanor stood, her feet throbbing. She was halfway to the door when Abby's voice stopped her. "Mrs. Hartwell." "Yes." "You'll be here tomorrow at breakfast." The question was casual, but Eleanor heard the fear underneath. "Yes." "And the day after?" "Yes." "But you can't promise forever." Eleanor turned back. Abby had rolled over her face, visible in the lamplight. So young and so old at the same time. "No," Eleanor said. "I can't promise forever, but I can promise I'll be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, until I can't anymore." "Why? Why would you promise that when you don't have to?" "Because I know what it feels like to be left, and I won't do that to someone else if I have any choice at all." Abby's eyes glistened. "Mama didn't have a choice. She tried to stay. She tried so hard." "I know, sweetheart. Don't call me that. You're not my mother." "You're right. I'm not. I'm sorry." Eleanor left before the tears could fall, closing the door softly behind her. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and let herself shake. This was harder than she'd expected. These girls with their wounds and their walls. Their need disguised as hostility. Their hope buried under suspicion. She understood them too well. Saw herself in Abby's defenses and Maggie's desperate affection. Knew how it felt to want to trust and be terrified of the cost. Footsteps on the stairs. Cole appeared, still in his work clothes, hay clinging to his shirt. "They asleep?" he asked. "Maggie is. Abby's pretending." Cole's mouth quirked. "She does that. Waits until she thinks everyone's gone, then cries into her pillow." "Do you go to her?" "Used to, but she told me to stop. Said it made it worse." Pain crossed his face. "So I stopped." "Cole, don't." He held up a hand. "Don't tell me I should spend more time with them. Don't tell me they need me. I know what they need. I'm just..." He stopped. "Just what?" Afraid I'll fail them, like I failed their mother. The confession hung in the air between them. Eleanor took a careful step closer. How did you fail Catherine? I couldn't save her. Couldn't stop the sickness, couldn't ease her pain, couldn't... His voice broke. I held her hand while she died, and I couldn't do a damn thing to stop it. That's not failing. That's being human. Tell that to my daughters when they ask why Mama's gone. They don't blame you. Maybe they should. Cole turned away. Good night, Mrs. Hartwell. Your first day is done. You survived. He walked to his room and shut the door with careful precision. Eleanor stood alone in the hallway, her feet bleeding through the bandages, her heart aching for this broken family she'd somehow become part of. Tomorrow she would wake at dawn and prove herself again. Tomorrow she would face Abby's tests and Maggie's hope and Cole's distance. Tomorrow she would take another step toward earning the right to stay. But tonight, in the darkness of Iron Creek Ranch, Eleanor let herself cry for the family she'd lost, and the family she was trying to build from the scattered pieces of other people's grief. Outside, the wind howled across the Wyoming plains, carrying the promise of winter and the weight of everything still to come. 2 weeks passed like water through cupped hands, too fast and never enough. Eleanor's feet healed slowly, the raw flesh knitting itself back together in painful increments. Her body remembered how to work her hands, finding their rhythm in the daily tasks that kept Iron Creek running. But the real work wasn't physical. Abby watched her constantly, those gray eyes cataloging every word, every action, every moment Eleanor chose to stay when she could have left. The girl never softened, never let her guard down, but the tests became less cruel, more curious. Maggie attached herself to Eleanor's side like a second shadow, chattering endlessly about birds and clouds and whether heaven had libraries. She asked for hugs a dozen times a day and cried when Eleanor went to her room at night, terrified she wouldn't be there in the morning. And Cole kept his distance, watching from afar with an expression Eleanor couldn't read. Present at meals, but silent. There at bedtime, but gone before the girls finished their prayers. Running from something Eleanor understood too well. On the 15th morning, Eleanor woke to frost covering her window in delicate patterns. Winter was coming early. She dressed quickly and went downstairs to find Ruth already in the kitchen, her face tight with worry. "What's wrong?" Eleanor asked. "Mr. Dalton rode out before dawn, said he'd be back by noon." Ruth kneaded bread dough with unusual force. "But there's a stranger in town asking questions about the ranch. Sam came back last night and told him." "What kind of questions?" "The wrong kind. About finances, about how much land Cole owns, about whether he's struggling since Catherine died." Ruth's hand stilled. "Someone's circling Mrs. Hartwell. And I don't like it." Eleanor's stomach clenched. "Does Cole know who?" "Not yet, but he'll find out." Ruth shaped the dough into loaves with sharp, angry movements. Men like that, vultures waiting for weakness. They don't care who they hurt. Before Eleanor could respond, Maggie ran into the kitchen, her face streaked with tears. "Abby's being mean," she wailed. "She said I can't come to lessons today because I'm too stupid." "Maggie, I did not say that." Abby appeared in the doorway, her jaw set. "I said you need to focus instead of drawing pictures all morning. There's a difference." "You said I was stupid." "I said your spelling was stupid, not you." Maggie's face crumpled. "That's the same thing." "It's not." "Girls." Eleanor's voice cut through the argument. "Maggie, go wash your face. Abby, come here." Maggie fled. Abby crossed her arms but didn't move. "I said, come here." Abby took 3 reluctant steps forward. Eleanor knelt, bringing herself to eye level despite the protest in her healing feet. "What's really wrong?" "Nothing." "Don't lie to me. You're smart enough to know the difference between stupid spelling and calling your sister stupid. So what's actually bothering you?" Abby's facade cracked. "Papa left without saying goodbye. He always says goodbye, even when he's angry or tired or..." Her voice broke. What if something happens and I never see him again? Eleanor's heart twisted. Oh, sweetheart. Don't call me that. Abby jerked back. And don't tell me everything's fine. Mama said goodbye the morning she died, and I didn't know it was the last time. I didn't know. She was crying now, the tears she'd held back for weeks finally breaking through. Eleanor pulled her close, despite the girl's resistance holding her while she sobbed. I'm so scared all the time, Abby whispered against Eleanor's shoulder. Scared Papa will die too. Scared you'll leave. Scared Maggie will forget Mama completely. I'm tired of being scared. I know you are. Make it stop. Please make it stop. Eleanor stroked the girl's hair, her own tears falling silent. I can't make it stop, but I can promise you this, your father will come home today, and I'll be here when he does. And we'll get through today together, and then we'll get through tomorrow. That's not enough. It's all I have. Abby pulled back, wiping her eyes roughly. I hate crying. It doesn't change anything. No, but it reminds us we're still alive enough to feel. Something shifted in Abby's expression, recognition maybe, understanding. She nodded once and went to find her sister. Ruth had stopped needing to watch them. You're good with her. I remember being her age and terrified. Eleanor stood slowly. After my parents died, I used to check on my grandmother constantly, made sure she was still breathing, still there. And when she passed, I married the first man who asked just so I wouldn't be alone. Eleanor's laugh was bitter. Turned out alone might have been safer. Before Ruth could respond, the front door slammed open. Sam Tucker stood in the hallway, hat in hand, his face grim. Mrs. Brennan, we got trouble. Mr. Dalton sent word from town there's a man coming here, says he's family to Mrs. Hartwell. The blood drained from Eleanor's face. What? Name of Victor Ashford. Says he's your cousin, needs to speak with you, urgent. Sam's eyes were cold and suspicious. That true? Eleanor gripped the table to keep from swaying. Victor. Here. It wasn't possible. She'd been so careful, used a different name, stayed off main roads. Mrs. Hartwell. Ruth's voice seemed to come from very far away. Who is this man? He's... Eleanor's mind raced. He's my mother's nephew. I haven't seen him in years. I didn't know he was in Wyoming. Well, he's here now. And he's asking questions about you, about this ranch, about Mr. Dalton's finances. Sam stepped closer, his hand resting on his pistol. You bring trouble to this family. No, I swear I didn't. Sam, back off. Ruth moved between them. Let her explain. But Eleanor couldn't explain. Not without revealing everything, the debts in Kansas, the men who'd stolen her land, the real reason she'd been running. And if she told the truth now, Cole would think she'd lied from the beginning. Would think she'd come here with ulterior motives. The girls appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. What's happening? Abby demanded. Why is everyone yelling, nothing, sweetie? Eleanor forced her voice steady. Just a misunderstanding. That man says he's your cousin, Sam said flatly. Says he's got business with you and Mr. Dalton both. Now I'm asking one more time, did you bring trouble here? I didn't know he was coming. I haven't seen him since... Eleanor stopped. Since Thomas's funeral. Since Victor had offered to help settle the estate, then disappeared with half the money Thomas's parents had left them. Since when? Sam pressed. Since my husband died. And what kind of business would he have with Mr. Dalton? I don't know. You're lying. Sam? Ruth's voice cracked like a whip. That's enough. But the damage was done. Abby's face had gone white and still. Maggie clutched her doll, trembling. You said you weren't running from anyone, Abby whispered. You said you told us the truth. I did, I am. This isn't... Papa was right. Abby's voice turned cold, so much like Cole's. It hurt. Everyone lies. Everyone leaves. And you're just like all the rest. She grabbed Maggie's hand and pulled her from the room. Their footsteps pounded up the stairs. A door slammed. Eleanor stood frozen, her carefully built world crumbling around her. "You need to talk to Mr. Dalton before that man arrives," Ruth said quietly. "Tell him everything, all of it, or this ends badly for everyone." "I can't. If I tell him about Kansas, about the debts and the stealing, he'll think I'm a criminal. And if you don't tell him and he finds out from someone else, he'll know you're a liar." Ruth's eyes were kind but firm. "You got one chance to get ahead of this, Mrs. Hartwell. I suggest you take it." Eleanor nodded numbly. "When will Cole be back?" "Any minute. He rode hard when he got Sam's message." As if summoned hoofbeats thundered into the yard. Eleanor moved to the window and saw Cole dismounting, his face like thunder. He strode toward the house with purpose, and Eleanor's stomach dropped. He came through the door and found her immediately. "My office, now!" Eleanor followed, her legs weak. Cole shut the door behind them and turned, his arms crossed. "Sam says Victor Ashford claims to be your cousin." "He is," distantly. "And you didn't think to mention you had family in Wyoming." "I didn't know he was here. I haven't seen him in over 2 years." "Since your husband died." Eleanor nodded. "What does he want?" "I don't know." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me, Eleanor. What does he want?" She couldn't meet his gaze. "Victor helped settle my husband's estate after he died. He took money that was supposed to go to me and disappeared. I haven't heard from him since." "So he's a thief." "Yes. And he's coming here, to my ranch, after asking questions about my finances in town." Cole's voice went dangerously quiet. "Did you tell him about Iron Creek?" "No, I didn't even know he was in Wyoming. I swear." "Your swearing doesn't mean much right now." He moved behind his desk, putting distance between them. "What else haven't you told me?" Eleanor's throat closed. "The debts that took my land in Kansas, they weren't legitimate. Men forged documents, claimed Thomas owed money he didn't. Victor helped them. He got a cut of the land sale." "Jesus Christ." Cole's hand slammed down on the desk. "You've been here 2 weeks, and you're just now mentioning you've got criminals in your past. I didn't think they'd follow me." "Well, one of them did. And now he's asking about my ranch, my money, my—" Cole stopped, his face going pale. "My daughters. He asked questions about my daughters." The way he said it made Eleanor's blood run cold. "What kind of questions?" "How old they are, whether I have a will, who'd get the ranch if something happened to me." Cole's hand went to the gun at his hip. "That son of a bitch is planning something." "Cole, I didn't know." "Get out." The words hit like a slap. "What?" "Get out of my office. Go to your room and stay there until I figure out what to do with you." "Please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. You brought danger to my home, to my children." His eyes were ice. "I gave you a chance when you had nothing, and you repaid me by lying." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." He turned away. "Get out, now." Eleanor fled, tears blinding her. She made it to her room and collapsed on the bed, her body shaking with sobs. She'd ruined everything. The fragile trust she'd built with the girls. The tentative place she'd carved out here, all of it gone because Victor had found her. Because she'd been too afraid to tell the whole truth from the beginning. A soft knock on her door. "Mrs. Hartwell?" Miss Whitmore's voice uncertain and gentle. Eleanor wiped her eyes. "Come in." The governess entered, her hands twisting nervously. "I heard what happened. I'm so sorry." "It's not your concern." "Actually, it is." Miss Whitmore sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm leaving. Today. I can't. I'm not strong enough for this life. The isolation, the responsibility, the girls—" She stopped. "I've been trying to tell Mr. Dalton for a week, but I couldn't find the courage." Eleanor stared at her. "You're leaving now, when everything's falling apart. I know the timing is terrible, But I can't stay. And you—" Miss Whitmore's eyes were kind. "You should leave too, before Mr. Dalton fires you, before the girls get hurt worse." "I can't leave them." "You have to. Don't you see that man coming here? The trouble you brought Mr. Dalton will never forgive you, and the girls will never trust you again." She stood. "Save yourself while you can." After she left, Eleanor sat in the silence of her room and considered it. She could pack her few belongings, walk out while Cole was occupied, disappear before Victor arrived. It would be easier, cleaner, safer. But downstairs were two girls who'd already lost too much. Two girls she'd promised to stay for even when staying was hard. Eleanor stood and splashed water on her face. Her reflection looked haggard, older than her 28 years. But her eyes, her sad eyes that Maggie had recognized, held determination. She wouldn't run. Not this time. She went downstairs and found Ruth in the kitchen preparing lunch with sharp, angry movements. "I need to see the girls," Eleanor said. "They locked themselves in their room. Won't talk to anyone." "Then I'll talk through the door." Eleanor headed for the stairs. "Mrs. Hartwell, Eleanor." Ruth's voice stopped her. "Whatever you're planning, be careful. Mr. Dalton's scared, and scared men make rash decisions." "I know. But those girls deserve better than being abandoned again." Eleanor climbed to the second floor and knocked on the girl's door. "Abby, Maggie, it's me." Silence. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. I should have told your father about Victor from the beginning." More silence. "But I need you to know something. I didn't bring him here on purpose. I didn't know he was in Wyoming, and whatever he wants, whatever trouble he's planning, I'm going to face it. I'm not running." The door opened a crack. Abby's tear-stained face appeared. "Why should we believe you?" "Because running is easier, and I'm choosing to stay anyway." Abby studied her for a long moment. "Papa's going to fire you." "Maybe. And that man's going to cause trouble." "Probably." "Then why stay?" Eleanor knelt so she was eye level with the girl. "Because 2 weeks ago, I promised I'd be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. I haven't broken that promise yet, and I don't intend to start now." Something cracked in Abby's expression. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Can I be both?" The smallest smile ghosted across Abby's face. Then it vanished. "Papa won't let you stay. Not after this." "Then I'll fight for the right to stay." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." Eleanor stood. "Right now I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Stay in this room with Maggie. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except your father or Ruth. Can you do that?" Fear flashed in Abby's eyes. "Is that man dangerous?" "I don't know, but I'm not taking chances with you two." "What about you?" "I'll be fine." "That's a lie." "Yes," Eleanor admitted, "but it's a necessary one." Abby nodded slowly. "Be careful, Mrs. Hartwell." "I will." "And Abby, I meant what I said. I'm not leaving unless your father physically throws me out." She went back downstairs to find Cole in the front hall checking his rifle. Sam stood beside him, armed and ready. "What are you doing out of your room?" Cole demanded. "Waiting for Victor. I'm not hiding while you face this alone." "This isn't your fight." "It absolutely is. He's here because of me." Eleanor moved closer. "I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But let me handle Victor. Let me prove I'm not the coward you think I am." "I don't think you're a coward. I think you're reckless." But something in Cole's eyes had softened fractionally. "And I'm not letting you face him alone. Then we face him together." Cole's jaw tightened. He nodded once. The sound of wagon wheels on the drive made them all tense. Through the window, Eleanor saw an elegant carriage approaching black lacquered wood pulled by matched gray horses. Far too expensive for these parts. Victor had done well for himself with stolen money. The carriage stopped. A driver in livery climbed down and opened the door. Victor Ashford stepped out. He looked exactly as Eleanor remembered, tall and thin with silver hair, despite being only 45. Expensive suit, gold watch chain, a smile that never reached his eyes. The kind of man who could charm you while cutting your throat. His gaze found the house, and he waved, cheerful and false. "Eleanor, my dear cousin," he called. "What a relief to finally find you." Cole's hand tightened on his rifle. "Stay behind me." But Eleanor stepped forward, moving to the porch. "Victor, this is unexpected. I've been searching for you for months." He approached the porch steps but didn't climb them. Smart enough to recognize the threat in Cole's stance. "You disappeared so suddenly after dear Thomas's funeral. I was worried sick." "Were you?" Eleanor's voice was flat. "Worried enough to return the money you stole?" Victor's smile didn't waver. "Stole, my dear girl. I settled the estate exactly as Thomas would have wanted. It's not my fault there were more debts than assets. Those debts were manufactured and you know it." "Do I?" He spread his hands. "Well, regardless, I'm not here to relitigate the past. I'm here because we're family, Eleanor, and family should stick together." "We're not family." "Blood says differently." His eyes shifted to Cole. "You must be James Dalton. I've heard so much about you in town. A widower with 2 young daughters running one of the finest ranches in Wyoming. My condolences on your loss." "Get to the point," Cole said coldly. "What do you want?" "Merely to ensure my dear cousin is being treated well. When I heard she was working as a, what's the delicate term, housekeeper, I felt compelled to check on her welfare." Victor's smile turned predatory. A woman of Eleanor's background reduced to servitude. It's heartbreaking. "I'm not reduced to anything. I work here by choice." "Choice?" Victor laughed. "Oh, Eleanor, always so proud. But pride doesn't pay debts, does it?" Eleanor's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "The debts you incurred in Kansas. The promissory notes your husband signed before his tragic death. They've been sold to a collection agency, and that agency has hired me to locate you." He pulled papers from his jacket. "You owe $3,000, my dear. Due immediately." "That's impossible. Thomas never borrowed that money." "The paperwork says otherwise. And the law, I'm afraid, sides with paperwork." Victor's eyes glittered. "Of course I convinced the agency to accept alternative payment arrangements, given our family connection." "What kind of arrangements?" Cole's voice was dangerous. Victor ignored him, keeping his focus on Eleanor. "Help me acquire this ranch and I'll forgive the entire debt. Simple as that." The air seemed to freeze. "You want me to help you steal Iron Creek?" Eleanor said slowly. "Steal is such an ugly word. I prefer facilitate a sale. Mr. Dalton is struggling financially. Everyone in town says so. A fair offer, a bit of persuasion, and he could walk away with enough money to start fresh somewhere easier." Victor's smile widened. Somewhere his daughters wouldn't be in danger from winter storms or cattle thieves, or accidents do happen on ranches. Cole moved faster than Eleanor had ever seen. One moment he was on the porch. The next, he had Victor by the throat, the rifle barrel pressed under the man's chin. "You threatening my children?" Cole's voice was deadly quiet. Victor's smile never faltered despite the weapon at his throat. "Simply stating facts. Ranching is dangerous work. Children get hurt all the time." "Cole, don't." Eleanor grabbed his arm. "He's trying to provoke you. Don't give him a reason to call the law." "Listen to your housekeeper, Mr. Dalton." Victor's eyes were cold. "I have friends in the territorial government. You assault me, and I'll have this ranch seized for debts you can't prove you don't owe. Paperwork is remarkably easy to forge when you know the right people." Cole shoved him backward. Victor stumbled but caught himself smoothing his suit. "You have until tomorrow to decide," Victor said pleasantly. "Sell to me at a fair price, or I'll take this ranch piece by piece through the courts. And Eleanor." He looked at her with false sympathy. I'll have you arrested for debt evasion. You'll spend the next 5 years in a work prison. Your choice." He climbed back into his carriage and tapped the roof. The driver cracked the reins, and they rolled away, leaving silence in their wake. Eleanor's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the porch steps, her whole body shaking. Cole stood frozen, his rifle still in his hands, his face a mask of rage and fear. "I'm sorry," Eleanor whispered. "God, Cole, I'm so sorry." How much of what he said is true? His voice was carefully controlled. "The debts are fake. I never borrowed that money." "But you can't prove it." "No." "And he has forged documents that say you did." Eleanor nodded miserably. Cole sat down beside her, suddenly looking exhausted. "This is bad, Eleanor." "I know. He'll use the law to destroy us. Take the ranch, put you in prison, leave my girls." He stopped, unable to finish. "I'll leave. Today. Before he can make good on his threats. If I'm gone, maybe he'll leave you alone." "He won't. You heard him. He wants this ranch." Cole's hand found hers, gripping tight. "And if you run, he'll use your absence as proof you're guilty. He'll still come after us." "Then what do we do?" "We fight." Cole's eyes met hers, storm blue and fierce. "We find a way to prove those debts are fraudulent. We expose him before he can destroy us." "How? He has the law on his side." "Then we'll find something stronger than the law." Eleanor wanted to believe him, wanted to believe they could win against a man like Victor. But she'd fought before and lost everything. "Cole, I need to tell you something else. More bad news. The worst." She took a shaky breath. "Victor isn't just a thief. He's dangerous. When he came after my land in Kansas, anyone who stood in his way had accidents. A lawyer who questioned the documents, his house burned down. A neighbor who testified for me trampled by his own horses." Eleanor's voice broke. "I can't let that happen to you, to the girls." "Then we'll be careful." "Careful isn't enough. He's already threatened Abby and Maggie. What if—" A scream from inside the house cut her off. Cole was moving before Eleanor processed what she'd heard, racing inside with his rifle raised. Eleanor followed, her heart hammering. They found Ruth in the kitchen, white-faced and shaking, holding a piece of paper. "What happened?" Cole demanded. "This was on the counter. I just found it." Ruth handed him the paper with trembling hands. Cole read it and went absolutely still. Then he handed it to Eleanor. The message was simple, written in elegant script. "I always get what I want. This ranch will be mine one way or another. And if you resist, the first to suffer will be the children. You have until tomorrow at noon. V.A." Eleanor's vision grayed at the edges. He'd been in the house. While they talked on the porch, someone had come through the back and left this threat in the kitchen, feet away from where the girls were upstairs. "The girls?" Cole said, already moving. They ran upstairs together. Cole pounded on the girl's door. "Abby, Maggie, open up." Silence. "Abby, open this door right now." The lock clicked. The door swung open. Both girls stood there, alive and whole and terrified. Cole pulled them into his arms, holding them so tightly they squeaked in protest. "Papa, we're okay," Abby said. "We stayed in the room like Mrs. Hartwell told us." "We heard a noise downstairs, but we didn't leave," Maggie added. "Were we good?" Cole's voice was rough. "You were perfect." Eleanor leaned against the doorframe, her knees weak with relief. They were safe, for now. But Victor had made his point. He could reach them any time he wanted. And tomorrow at noon, he'd come back for his answer. Cole looked up at Eleanor over his daughters' heads, and she saw the same fear she felt reflected in his eyes. They had less than 24 hours to save everything, and Eleanor had no idea how. Cole sent the girls back into their room with Ruth standing guard outside the door, armed with a shotgun she handled like she'd used it before. Then he pulled Eleanor into his office and shut the door. "We need a plan," he said, pacing like a caged animal. Victor wants an answer by noon tomorrow. We need leverage before then. What kind of leverage? He has forged documents, connections in the territorial government, and he's already proven he can get into this house. Eleanor's voice shook. We have nothing. We have the truth. The truth doesn't matter if we can't prove it. She pressed her hands against her temples, trying to think through the fear. In Kansas, I tried everything. Hired a lawyer, gathered witnesses, showed the bank records proving Thomas never borrowed that money. Victor had better forgeries, better lies. The judge ruled against me in under an hour. Cole stopped pacing. Tell me everything about Kansas. Every detail. There has to be something we can use. Eleanor forced herself to remember to go back to those terrible months after Thomas died. Victor showed up at the funeral. Said he wanted to help settle the estate as family. I wasn't thinking clearly. I'd just lost my son, then my husband. I signed papers Victor put in front of me without reading them carefully. What kind of papers? Transfer of assets to pay debts, he said. I thought he meant Thomas's legitimate debts, the loan on our seed crop, the doctor bills from when Samuel was sick. But he'd added his own debts. Made it look like Thomas borrowed $3,000 from him personally. And you signed it. I signed a paper that said I acknowledged the debts existed, not that I agreed to pay them. Eleanor's hands clenched. But Victor changed the wording after I signed. Added clauses that made me responsible for the full amount. Cole's eyes narrowed. Do you have your copy of what you actually signed? No. He said he'd send it. He never did. But somewhere there's an original, the one you signed before he altered it. Cole grabbed her shoulders. Eleanor, think. Who witnessed your signature? The local minister, Reverend Matthews, but She stopped. He's probably still in Kansas, in the town where Thomas and I lived. Then we send someone to find him, get a sworn statement about what he witnessed. Cole was already moving toward his desk, pulling out paper. Sam can ride to the telegraph office, send word to Kansas. If we can prove Victor forged those documents, it won't matter. Eleanor's voice was hollow. Victor's smart. He'll have covered his tracks. And even if we prove the debt is fake, he can still hurt us. Hurt the girls. He made that clear. Then we need something on him. Something that gives us power instead of him holding all the cards. Cole's jaw set. There's got to be something. A knock on the door. Sam Tucker entered without waiting for permission, his face grim. Boss, we got a problem. Just got word from town Judge Pritchard's been called away on territorial business. Won't be back for 3 weeks. So, Cole said. So the circuit judge who's replacing him name's Harlan Cross. And according to the barkeep, Cross and Victor Ashford are old friends from Denver. Sam's expression was disgusted. The fix is already in. Eleanor felt the last of her hope crumble. He planned this, sent for a judge he controls before he even came here. Looks that way. Sam turned to Cole. Boss, I know you want to fight this legal, but that man's not playing by any rules. Maybe it's time we didn't either. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting Victor Ashford might have an accident on his way back to town tonight. Lots of dangerous roads around here. Easy for a carriage to go off a cliff in the dark. No. Cole's voice was hard. I won't become a murderer to save my ranch. Even if it means losing everything. Even if it means your girls are in danger. Especially then. What kind of father would I be if I taught them you can kill your way out of problems? Cole's hand slammed on the desk. We find another way. Sam's mouth tightened, but he nodded. Then you better find it fast. That man's playing for keeps. After Sam left, Eleanor and Cole sat in silence. The clock on the mantel ticked away the seconds they didn't have. There might be one thing, Eleanor said slowly, but it's dangerous, and it might not work. Tell me. When Victor stole from me in Kansas, he wasn't working alone. There was a man with him, his partner, called himself Dutch Carver. He handled the physical threats while Victor handled the legal manipulation. Eleanor's stomach churned at the memory. Dutch was the one who burned down the lawyer's house, who caused the accidents. Where is he now? I don't know, but if Victor's here, Dutch might be too. And if we can find Dutch, if we can get him to talk, he'd never testify against Victor. Not willingly, but men like Dutch, they're loyal until they're not. If we can offer him something better than what Victor's paying. We don't have money to bribe him. No, but we might have something else. Eleanor met Cole's eyes. Victor's planning to betray him. He always does. Uses people and then disposes of them once they're not useful. If we can prove Victor's planning to cut Dutch out. A crash from upstairs. Both of them ran. They found Ruth on the floor outside the girl's room, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. The door to the room stood open. Empty. No! The word ripped from Cole's throat. No, no, no! He came through the window. Ruth gasped, trying to stand. Had a rope. I tried to stop him, but he hit me with something. Took both girls. I'm sorry, Mr. Dalton. I'm so sorry. Cole was already moving, racing downstairs and out into the yard. Eleanor followed her heart in her throat, hoofbeats in the distance, disappearing into the darkness. Abby, Maggie. Cole's voice broke on their names. Sam ran from the barn. Boss, what happened? Someone took my daughters. Get every man mounted. Now. On it. Sam ran shouting orders. Eleanor grabbed Cole's arm before he could follow. It's Victor. He took them to force your hand. Then I'll kill him. Cole's voice was flat and cold. I'll kill him and anyone who helped him. That's what he wants. He takes the girls, you come after him crazy with fear. You do something that gets you arrested or killed, and he takes the ranch from your estate. Eleanor forced him to look at her. Cole, we have to think. Where would he take them? I don't know. He stopped, his eyes widening. The old Millhouse property. 3 miles north. Been abandoned for years. Victor asked about it in town, said he was interested in buying it. That's where he'll be. Eleanor was already moving toward the barn. We need horses and weapons. Within minutes they were mounted. Cole, Eleanor, Sam, and 4 ranch hands. They rode hard through the darkness, the horses' breath steaming in the cold night air. Eleanor's mind raced as they rode. Victor had the girls, had Abby and Maggie. 2 children who'd already lost so much. If anything happened to them. They'll be alive, Cole said as if reading her thoughts. He needs them alive to use as leverage. For now, but when he gets what he wants, we'll get to them before that. His voice held a certainty Eleanor wished she could feel. The Millhouse property appeared ahead, a dark shape against the darker sky. A light burned in the main house window. Cole raised his hand, and they all stopped. Sam, take 2 men and circle around back. Anyone tries to run, stop them. Cole's voice was steady despite the fear Eleanor knew he felt. Rest of you with me. I'm coming with you, Eleanor said. Eleanor, those girls know me. If they're scared, they'll need a familiar face. She met his eyes. I'm coming. Cole nodded once. They dismounted and moved toward the house on foot. The front door stood slightly ajar, light spilling out into the darkness. Too easy. Too obvious. A trap. Cole pushed the door open slowly. Inside the house was bare except for a table and 2 chairs. Victor sat in one of them smiling. Dutch Carver, a massive man with a scarred face and dead eyes, stood behind him. And tied to chairs against the far wall, gagged but alive, were Abby and Maggie. Eleanor's breath caught. Maggie was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Abby's eyes were fierce and angry, already working at the ropes binding her wrists. Mr. Dalton, Mrs. Hartwell, so prompt. Victor stood, gesturing to the empty chair. Please sit. Let's discuss terms. Where are my daughters? Cole's rifle was up, pointed at Victor's chest. Safe, for now. But their continued safety depends entirely on your cooperation. Victor's smile didn't waver. Shoot me and Dutch kills them both before you can turn your gun on him. Put the rifle down. Cole's hands shook with rage, but he lowered the weapon slowly. Excellent. Now sit. I'll stand. Suit yourself. Victor pulled papers from his jacket. This is a bill of sale. Sign it, and I'll let your daughters go. Refuse, and well, accidents happen to children all the time. You sick bastard! Eleanor's voice was venomous. They're 10 and 6 years old. And their leverage. Effective leverage apparently given how quickly you both came running. Victor slid the papers across the table toward Cole. The ranch, the cattle, the buildings, all of it for the bargain price of $1. Sign it. And if I do, what's to stop you from killing us all anyway? Absolutely nothing. But if you don't sign, I'll definitely kill them. At least this way you have a chance. Victor's eyes glittered. Your choice. Your ranch or your daughters. Cole stared at the papers. Eleanor could see his hands clenching and unclenching, see the war on his face between love and pride. Don't do it, Papa. Abby's voice was muffled by the gag, but clear enough to understand. She'd worked it loose. Don't let him win. Quiet child. Dutch moved toward her, his hand raised. Touch her and you die, Cole said quietly. Dutch froze. Victor laughed. Such spirit. Catherine raised them well before she died. Pity she's not here to see what becomes of them. Don't you dare speak her name, Cole snarled. Why not I knew Catherine? Met her in Denver years ago before she married you and buried herself on this godforsaken ranch. Victor's smile turned cruel. She was lovely then, full of life. Did you know she had other suitors? Men who could have given her so much more than you did. Shut your mouth. I'm just saying perhaps dying of consumption in Wyoming wasn't the fate she deserved. Perhaps... Cole lunged. Dutch's gun came up. Eleanor screamed. The gunshot was deafening in the small room. But it wasn't Dutch who fired. Sam Tucker stood in the doorway, his pistol smoking. Dutch Carver crumpled to the floor, a red stain spreading across his chest. Boss, move! Sam shouted. Everything happened at once. Cole grabbed the table and flipped it, papers flying. Victor dove for cover. Eleanor ran for the girls, her fingers fumbling with the ropes. More gunshots. Sam and the ranch hands flooding in. Victor scrambling for the back door. Let him go. Cole was at Eleanor's side, working at Abby's ropes. Just get the girls free. The ropes fell away. Abby ripped off her gag and immediately started working on Maggie's bonds. Eleanor helped, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip the knots. Finally, Maggie was free. She threw herself at Cole, sobbing. Abby wrapped her arms around both of them. You came, Maggie cried. You came for us. Always, baby. Always. Cole's voice broke. Are you hurt? Did he hurt you? No, he just tied us up and said scary things. Maggie buried her face against his chest. I was so scared, Papa. I know, but you're safe now. Sam appeared in the doorway. Boss Victor got away, took off on horseback before we could stop him. Cole's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Let him go. We got what matters. The law's gonna want to know about Dutch. Sam gestured to the body on the floor. I shot a man. That's gonna bring questions. Self-defense. We have witnesses. Cole stood still, holding Maggie, and reached for Abby's hand. We'll deal with the law. Right now, I'm taking my daughters home. They rode back to Iron Creek in silence. Maggie fell asleep against Cole's chest, exhausted from fear and tears. Abby rode behind Eleanor, her arms wrapped tight around Eleanor's waist. Thank you, Abby whispered, for not running, for staying. Eleanor's throat was too tight to speak. She just covered Abby's hands with her own and held on. At the ranch, Ruth had recovered enough to fuss over the girls, checking them for injuries, despite their protests that they were fine. Cole refused to let them out of his sight, carrying Maggie upstairs himself and sitting on the floor between their beds, while Ruth brought warm milk and Eleanor found extra blankets. I want Mrs. Hartwell to stay, Maggie said drowsily. Please, Papa. I don't want to be alone. I'm not leaving, Cole said gently. Not you. I mean Mrs. Hartwell. I want her to stay too. Cole's eyes met Eleanor's across the room. That's up to her. Eleanor pulled a chair close to the girls' beds and sat down. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Maggie's eyes were already closing. I promise. Within minutes, both girls were asleep. Cole stood stiffly, his back against the wall, his face exhausted. You should rest, Eleanor said quietly. Can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see that room, see them tied up, see what could have happened if... His voice broke. Eleanor went to him, taking his hand. But it didn't happen. They're safe. Because of you. If you hadn't figured out where Victor would take them. If I hadn't come here, he never would have found you at all. Eleanor's guilt was crushing. This is my fault, Cole. All of it. No. It's Victor's fault for being a monster. And it's my fault for not protecting them better. He squeezed her hand. But we're not done yet. Victor's still out there. He'll come back. I know. We need to end this. Permanently. Cole's eyes were hard. Tomorrow we go to town. We tell the law everything. We make sure everyone knows what Victor did. The circuit judge is his friend. The law won't help us. Then we go around the law. We tell everyone in town. We make Victor's crimes public. Even judges can't ignore public outrage. Cole's mouth set in a grim line. And if that doesn't work, what? Then I'll do what Sam suggested. I'll make sure Victor Ashford has an accident he doesn't walk away from. Eleanor wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him violence wasn't the answer. But looking at his daughters sleeping fitfully, knowing how close they'd come to losing everything, she couldn't find the words. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, she said finally. They sat in silence, watching the girls sleep until dawn began to paint the sky pale gray. Ruth appeared in the doorway with coffee and news. Mr. Dalton, there's someone here to see you, says it's urgent. Who? Judge Pritchard, the real one. He came back early from his territorial business. Cole's head snapped up. Pritchard's here, in your office. Says he heard some concerning stories about land fraud and wants to get your version before he hears Victor Ashford's lies. Hope flared in Eleanor's chest. How did he know? Telegraph from Kansas came through last night, from a Reverend Matthews. Says he witnessed Eleanor signing documents under duress and wants to testify about what Victor Ashford did. Ruth's smile was fierce. Sam got your message through after all. Cole was already moving, careful not to wake the girls. Eleanor followed him downstairs to find Judge Amos Pritchard standing by the office window, a tall man in his 60s with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Dalton, Mrs. Hartwell. He nodded to each of them. I apologize for the early hour, but given what I've learned, time is essential. What did you learn? Cole asked. That Victor Ashford is wanted in 3 territories for fraud and extortion. That he's forged documents to steal property from widows and orphans across the West, and that he's currently operating under an assumed name because there's a warrant for his arrest in Colorado. Pritchard pulled papers from his case. I also learned he kidnapped your daughters last night and threatened to kill them if you didn't sign over your ranch. How did you... One of his accomplices got cold feet. Man named Carl Morrison who helped take the girls. He came to my house at midnight, confessed everything, and begged for protection. Pritchard's expression was disgusted. Said he didn't sign up for hurting children. Eleanor felt dizzy with relief. So you believe us? I believe the evidence. And the evidence says Victor Ashford is a criminal who needs to be stopped. Pritchard looked at Cole. With your permission, I'd like to use your ranch as headquarters for a territorial marshal I've called in. We're going to find Ashford and arrest him before he can hurt anyone else. You have my full cooperation. Cole's voice was rough. Whatever you need. Good. Because there's one more thing. Pritchard turned to Eleanor. Mrs. Hartwell. Reverend Matthews sent a sworn affidavit stating that the debts Victor claims you owe are completely fraudulent. He witnessed you signing a simple acknowledgement of legitimate debts totaling under $300, nothing close to $3,000. Victor forged the rest. Eleanor's knees buckled. Cole caught his arm solid around her waist. The debts are voided, Pritchard continued. And when we catch Ashford, he'll face charges for forgery, fraud, kidnapping, and attempted extortion. He's going to prison for a very long time. Thank you, Eleanor whispered. Thank you. Thank Reverend Matthews. He's the one who rode 3 days to the nearest telegraph office to send word. Pritchard gathered his papers. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to organize the search. The marshal should arrive by noon. After he left, Eleanor and Cole stood in the office holding each other. It's over, Cole said. It's really over. Not until they catch him. They will, and even if they don't, he can't hurt us anymore. The law knows the truth. The town knows the truth. Cole pulled back to look at her. You're free, Eleanor. The debts are gone. You could leave if you wanted. Start fresh somewhere else. Eleanor's heart stuttered. Is that what you want? For me to leave? God, no. I want... He stopped struggling with words. I want you to stay. Not as hired help. Not as someone working off an imaginary debt. I want you to stay because you want to. Because this is home. It is home. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. The first real home I've had since Thomas died. Since before that, maybe. I don't want to leave Cole. I want to stay. With you. With the girls. If you'll have me. Cole's smile was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. I'll have you. We'll have you. All of us. He kissed her, then gentle and careful, like she was something precious. Eleanor kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, the fear and relief and hope and love. When they broke apart, Maggie's voice came from the doorway. Does this mean Mrs. Hartwell is going to be our new mama? They turned to find both girls watching Abby smiling, and Maggie bouncing with excitement. If she's willing, Cole said, looking at Eleanor. And if you two are all right with it? Yes. Maggie ran forward and threw her arms around both of them. Yes, yes, yes. Abby walked over more slowly, her eyes bright. You're really staying forever. Forever, Eleanor promised. Or as close to forever as we get. I'm not going anywhere, Abby. Abby's face crumpled, and she joined the hug. All of them tangled together in the morning light, streaming through the office window. Family, Maggie pronounced. We're a real family now. And despite everything they'd been through, the fear and danger and near disaster, Eleanor felt something settle in her chest. Something that felt like peace. She'd come to Iron Creek with nothing. She'd found everything. Outside riders appeared on the horizon. The territorial marshal arriving with his men. The hunt for Victor Ashford beginning in earnest. But inside the ranch house, 4 people who'd been broken by loss had found a way to heal together. To become something stronger than they'd been alone. Eleanor looked at Cole, at Abby, at Maggie, and knew with absolute certainty that she was finally home. The marshal and his men searched for 3 days. They found Victor's abandoned carriage near the territorial border. The horses run to exhaustion, but no sign of the man himself. He'd vanished like smoke, leaving nothing but the wreckage of his schemes behind. On the 4th day, Cole stopped watching the horizon for threats and started watching Eleanor instead. The way she moved through his house, their house now, with quiet confidence. The way she laughed at Maggie's endless questions and challenged Abby's sharp mind with harder arithmetic. The way she'd become essential, without either of them quite noticing when it happened. You're staring, Ruth said, appearing at his elbow in the kitchen. Cole didn't deny it. She saved my daughters. She saved all of you. Ruth handed him coffee. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I already asked her to stay. Staying isn't enough. Not for a woman like that. Ruth's eyes were knowing. She needs to know she belongs here. Really belongs. Not as hired help who got lucky. As family. Cole's hands tightened on the cup. I don't know how to do this again. Catherine was dead. God rest her soul, but she's been dead 3 years. Ruth's voice was gentle but firm. And that woman upstairs isn't trying to replace Catherine. She's just trying to love what Catherine left behind. There's room in this house for both their memories. The girls already call her mama when they think you're not listening. Cole's breath caught. They do? Maggie started it 2 days ago. Abby corrected her once, then gave up when Maggie cried. Now they both do it. Ruth patted his arm. Your daughters have already chosen her. Question is, have you? Before Cole could answer, footsteps pounded down the stairs. Abby appeared, her face flushed with excitement. Papa, Papa, come quick. Eleanor said yes. Cole's heart stuttered. Yes to what? To teaching us permanently. Miss Whitmore's gone left yesterday while you were out with the marshal, and Eleanor said she'd take over our lessons full-time if it was all right with you. Abby grabbed his hand and pulled. She's amazing, Papa. She knows everything. Please say yes. Cole let himself be dragged upstairs to the schoolroom where Eleanor sat with Maggie, both of them bent over a slate covered in letters. Look, Papa. Maggie held up the slate proudly. I wrote a whole sentence. The bird flies home. Eleanor says that's about hope. Eleanor's cheeks were pink. I hope I didn't overstep. Miss Whitmore left a note saying she couldn't continue and the girls needed their lessons, so I thought, you thought right. Cole moved into the room, his eyes never leaving her face. But we need to discuss your wages. Cole, I don't need... Yes, you do. You're teaching my daughters. That's worth proper compensation. He pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. I had Judge Pritchard draw this up. It's a contract, room board, and $40 a month, standard rate for a governess. Eleanor stared at the paper like it might bite her. $40? That's too much. It's exactly right. Sign it. But Eleanor. His voice gentled. Let me do this. Let me give you security. You've spent 2 years running with nothing. Let yourself have something. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say yes, like you did with the girls. Yes. She took the paper with shaking hands. Yes, I'll sign. Abby whooped. Maggie clapped her hands. And Cole felt something tight in his chest finally ease. That night, after the girls were asleep, Cole found Eleanor in the kitchen, helping Ruth prepare tomorrow's bread. Flour dusted her cheek, and her sleeves were rolled up to her elbows. Walk with me, he asked. Eleanor wiped her hands and followed him outside. The November air was cold and sharp, carrying the promise of snow. Stars blazed overhead in the clear Wyoming sky. They walked in silence toward the barn, their breath making clouds in the darkness. I need to tell you something, Cole said finally. About Catherine. Eleanor tensed, but didn't speak. I loved her. Loved her from the moment I saw her at a church social in town. She was 19, and I was 23, and I knew I'd marry her before we even spoke. Cole's voice was rough with memory. We had 10 good years. Built this ranch together, had the girls made a life. And then she got sick. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Because you need to understand. He stopped walking and turned to face her. When Catherine died, part of me died with her. I thought I'd never feel anything again except this hollowness. This weight of just existing instead of living. Eleanor's face was pale in the starlight. But then you showed up at my gates in rags, half dead from walking, and something in me recognized something in you. The same pain, the same loss, the same determination to survive, even when surviving felt impossible. Cole took her hands. You brought me back to life, Eleanor. You and the girls, you reminded me what it feels like to hope. Cole. Let me finish. I'm not good at this. Never have been. But I need you to know. He swallowed hard. I'm falling in love with you. Maybe already have fallen. And I know it's fast. And I know we've been through hell. And I know you might not feel the same. Eleanor kissed him, fierce and desperate and full of everything she couldn't say. When they broke apart, she was crying. I love you, she whispered. I didn't think I could love anyone again after Thomas. Didn't think my heart had anything left to give. But you... Her voice broke. You and those girls, you became everything I didn't know I needed. Cole pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. Marry me. Eleanor went still. What? Marry me. Not because you work here. Not because the girls need a mother. Marry me because I can't imagine my life without you in it. He pulled back to look at her. I know it's soon. I know we've only known each other a month. But I spent 3 years being half alive, and I don't want to waste any more time. I want to wake up next to you. I want to build a life with you. I want... Yes. Eleanor's smile was radiant through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you. This time when they kissed, it felt like a promise, like the future they'd both stopped believing in suddenly stretching out before them full of possibility. When? Eleanor asked breathlessly. Soon as possible. Tomorrow if we can. Eleanor laughed. We need a minister. Witnesses. The girls should be there. Then next week. Before the heavy snows come. Before anything else can go wrong. Cole's arms tightened around her. I'm not giving fate any more chances to take you away from me. They told the girls the next morning at breakfast. Maggie squealed so loudly the chickens in the yard scattered. Abby cried the first happy tears Eleanor had seen from her and demanded to know if she could call Eleanor Mama now instead of waiting. You can call me whatever feels right, Eleanor said, her own tears falling freely. Mama, then. Abby said it firmly, testing the word. Mama. The week that followed was a blur of preparation. Ruth took charge of the wedding feast, cooking enough food to feed half the territory. Sam and the ranch hands cleaned the main barn for the ceremony, stringing it with lanterns and evergreen boughs. Maggie made decorations from paper and ribbons until the house was festooned with her creations. And Abby appointed herself Eleanor's advisor, dragging her to the trunk where Catherine's clothes were stored. Mama would want you to wear this, Abby said, pulling out a dress of pale blue wool with delicate white lace at the collar and cuffs. She wore it to church, said it was her favorite. Eleanor's hands trembled as she touched the fabric. Abby, I can't. This was your mother's, and now you're going to be our mother. Mama's not here to wear it anymore, but you are. Abby's eyes were fierce. She'd want you to have it. I know she would. How can you be sure? Because before she died, she made Papa promise something. She made him promise he'd find someone to love us after she was gone. Someone who'd be a real mother, not just hired help. Abby's voice shook. She said her girls deserve to grow up with love, and you love us, I can tell. Eleanor pulled Abby into her arms. I do. So much it scares me sometimes. Don't be scared. We're not going anywhere, and neither are you. On the morning of the wedding, Eleanor woke to find both girls in her room, Maggie bouncing on the bed and Abby holding a small wooden box. We have something for you, Abby said. From Mama. She opened the box to reveal a delicate silver locket on a chain. Papa gave this to Mama when they got married, Abby explained. She wore it every day until she got too sick. Then she gave it to Papa and told him to save it for... She stopped tears swimming. For the woman who'd love us next. Eleanor couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The weight of Catherine's blessing, the gift of a woman she'd never met but owed everything to. Will you wear it today? Maggie asked. Please. I'd be honored. Abby fastened the locket around Eleanor's neck with careful fingers. There. Now you're really part of the family. The ceremony was small and simple. Judge Pritchard agreed to officiate standing in the lantern-lit barn, with half of Riverbend in attendance. Word had spread about Victor's crimes and Eleanor's innocence, and the town had rallied to show support. Eleanor stood at the barn entrance in Catherine's blue dress with the locket around her neck, her hands full of wildflowers Maggie had picked that morning. Ruth walked her down the aisle between rows of rough-hewn benches, and at the end stood Cole with his daughters on either side. He was clean-shaven and wearing his best suit, his eyes wet with emotion as Eleanor approached. "You're beautiful," he whispered when she reached him. "So are you." Judge Pritchard cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of God and these witnesses to join James Cole Dalton and Eleanor Hartwell in holy matrimony." The words washed over Eleanor like a blessing. She gripped Cole's hands and tried to memorize every moment the weight of the locket against her chest, the sound of Maggie sniffling happily, the fierce pride in Abby's eyes, the love in Cole's face. "Do you, James Cole Dalton, take Eleanor Hartwell to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." Cole's voice was steady and sure. "And do you, Eleanor Hartwell, take James Cole Dalton to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Eleanor looked at this man who'd given her everything when she had nothing. This man who'd seen past her rags and desperation to the person underneath. This man who'd let her into his broken family and trusted her to help heal it. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. Dalton, you may kiss your bride." Cole cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with a tenderness that made Eleanor's heart ache. The barn erupted in cheers and applause. When they broke apart, Maggie threw her arms around both of them. "Mama, Papa, we're a real family now." "We've been a real family for a while now, sweetheart," Cole said. "This just makes it official." The celebration lasted into the night. Ruth's feast was devoured, toasts were made, and someone produced a fiddle for dancing. Cole swept Eleanor around the barn floor while the girls watched and clapped. And for the first time in years, Eleanor felt purely, completely happy. As the night wore down and guests began leaving, Abby pulled Eleanor aside. "I have one more thing to give you," she said quietly. "From me, not Mama." She handed Eleanor a folded piece of paper. Eleanor opened it to find a drawing, Cole and Eleanor standing with Abby and Maggie, all of them holding hands. Above them, sketched in careful detail, was Catherine's face, looking down with a smile. "I wanted you to know," Abby said, her voice thick with emotion, "that it's okay, that she'd be happy, that we're not betraying her by loving you." Eleanor pulled Abby close, her tears falling into the girl's dark hair. "Thank you for this, for accepting me, for being brave enough to let someone else in. You made it easy. You never tried to erase her. You made room for yourself next to her memory instead of trying to replace it." Abby pulled back, wiping her eyes. "That's how I know you're the right mama for us, because you understand that we can love you both." That night, Eleanor and Cole stood on the porch of their home and watched the last of the guests disappear into the darkness. The girls were asleep upstairs, exhausted from excitement. Ruth had retired to her quarters. The ranch was quiet, except for the wind and the distant sound of cattle. "Are you happy?" Cole asked, his arm around Eleanor's waist. "Happier than I have any right to be." Eleanor leaned against him. "A month ago, I was dying at your gates. Now I'm your wife. It doesn't feel real." "It's real. You're real. This is real." He kissed the top of her head. "And it's just the beginning." Eleanor thought about the road that had led her here, the losses that had broken her, the grief that had nearly destroyed her, the desperate walk that had brought her to Iron Creek's iron gates. She'd come here with nothing but pain and the clothes on her back. She'd found a family that needed her as much as she needed them. She'd found love in a man who understood loss. She'd found daughters in two girls who'd taught her that hearts could heal if you were brave enough to try. I want to do something, Eleanor said suddenly. With the ranch. With our life here. What? Open a school. A real school, not just lessons for Abby and Maggie. For all the children in the area who need education. Eleanor's words came faster as the idea took shape. There are families out here. Isolated families who can't afford governesses or can't send their children to town. We could teach them. Give them a chance. Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Catherine always wanted that. A school on the ranch. She had plans drawn up before she got sick. Then let's do it. For her. For us. For every child who needs a place to belong. Eleanor turned to face him. We could call it the Catherine Dalton School, her legacy continuing. She'd like that. Cole's eyes were bright with unshed tears. And I think it's perfect. You're perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm broken and scarred, and I still wake up sometimes forgetting where I am. Then you're perfectly imperfect. Just like me. Just like all of us. He pulled her close. And I wouldn't change a single thing. 3 months later, on a cold February morning, Eleanor stood in front of 12 children in the newly built schoolhouse on Iron Creek Ranch. Abby and Maggie sat in the front row beaming with pride. Behind them, ranch hands' children and farmers' sons and daughters from 20 miles around filled the benches. Above the chalkboard hung a photograph of Catherine Dalton smiling down at the room full of children she'd never met but had wanted to help. Welcome. Eleanor said, her voice steady and sure. Welcome to a place where every one of you matters. Where your questions are important and your dreams are worth pursuing. Welcome to the Catherine Dalton School. Outside, Cole leaned against the doorframe and watched his wife teach. Ruth appeared at his elbow with coffee. You did good, she said quietly. I didn't do anything. Eleanor did this. You gave her a chance when no one else would. You saw past the rags and the desperation to the person underneath. Ruth smiled. Catherine would be proud. Cole thought about his first wife, the woman he'd loved and lost. The woman who'd made him promise to find love again, to give their daughters a mother who'd stay. He thought about the day Eleanor had appeared at his gates, broken and desperate and beautiful in ways he hadn't recognized until later. He thought about the journey they'd all taken from grief to hope, from broken pieces to something whole. I think she is proud, Cole said finally. And I think she sent Eleanor to us, knew somehow that we'd need each other. Inside the schoolhouse, Eleanor was explaining arithmetic to a group of rapt children. Maggie's hand shot up with a question. Abby corrected a younger student's work with patient kindness. And everywhere in every corner of the room, there was life and laughter and the sound of healing. Eleanor had come to Wyoming with nothing. She'd walked 40 miles in the snow with bleeding feet and an empty stomach, driven by pure survival instinct, to reach the iron gates of Iron Creek Ranch. She'd begged for work, been tested and doubted and nearly destroyed by the ghost of her past. But she'd stayed. She'd fought. She'd proved that love could grow in the wreckage of loss, that families could be built from broken pieces, that second chances were real if you were brave enough to reach for them. The rancher had asked her a question that first day, though he hadn't spoken it aloud. Could she be what his daughters needed? Could she fill the void their mother had left? Eleanor had answered with her life, with her love, with every choice she made to stay when leaving would have been easier. And in doing so, she'd found what she needed too. A home, a purpose, a family that chose her as fiercely as she chose them. The woman who arrived in rags had become the heart of Iron Creek Ranch. The widow who'd lost everything had gained a future she'd stopped believing in. The desperate stranger at the gates had become the mother, the wife, the teacher, the light that guided them all home. This was her answer. This was her triumph. This was the life she'd built from ashes and hope. And it was more than enough.